in renegotiating this contract, you probably got a lot of leverage because they probably don't want to lose you.
Being African-American, Black female, and being one of maybe 4 in the city, that's some leverage. And then you're not going to find another primary care doctor that's more dedicated to the health equity of the city because I trained in an urban setting. And it's hard to find people who are invested in those communities. These are communities that look like me. Trying to explain that to corporate that, I don't care what your fair market value you rate me as. I compare to no number you can give me. You have to see my worth.
Folks, your exciting new medical career, it's just been hit with a serious illness or injury that stops you from earning a paycheck just when you need it most. Check out what Jamie Fleischner of Set for Life Insurance said back on episode 176 about having disability insurance early in your career.
The real reason to get it early on is really twofold. One is to protect your insurability. So if you are healthy and you can obtain the coverage, you also pre-approve yourself to be able to buy more in the future. So down the road, as your income does increase, you don't have to answer additional medical questions. All you have to do is show that your income is increased and you can buy more benefits at that time. No medical questions asked.
Protect your income, secure your future. Check out setforlifeinsurance.com. All right, everyone, what's good? This is Dr. Nee as well as Dr. Renee.
Hey.
We are here to have a little bit of a Q&A conversation with a longtime friend, a longtime listener of the show. A lot of times we don't get a chance to really interact with folks who are listening or people who just have questions about just what to do with their career, what to do with their lifestyle. And we are always giving advice. So this is a great opportunity for us to kind of talk to a listener, get their opinion, get our opinion on what they want to do with their life. And we just kind of take it from there. So everybody, we're going to put the number that you can text us if you have questions and if you want to be on the show and have a discussion like this. But we have Dr. Shivonne Suttles, family medicine doctor, who's here to talk about locums, talk about investing, and probably a little bit more. Dr. Shivonne, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, tell us what med school you went to, and where you're practicing at right now, please.
Well, thank you, Darkos. I am from the great city of Cleveland, Ohio. We're not the mistake on the lake, okay? But
not since 2016.
Right. Don't go there. Yeah, but
championship.
Yeah. But yeah, I am from Cleveland, Ohio. I am a family medicine physician. And I have a specialty in obesity weight management. That's what I love to do, as well as adolescent and women's health. So those are my focuses. And I'm currently in Akron, Ohio. And I went to Neo-UConn, which is now known as Neo-Med. It's had a few name changes since I went there. I think every president has named it something different, but that's where I went to school. And I did my residency at The Ohio State. And I am currently, like I said, in Akron.
Awesome.
So you come with a lot of training, a lot of, you're board certified in that. And I think right now you're finding yourself in a certain position that you would like that you have some questions about. You want to just kind of jump right into that?
Sure. I'm at 11 years out and I'm at that point where you guys talk a lot about burnout, where it's a big cycle of just, hurting in patients and not really giving them the quality of care that I would want to give. But insurance is dictating how many patients to see. And, companies are asking you see this many patients to make this kind of money. And to keep up with that kind of workload is getting a little mundane and a little tiresome that, getting up in the morning is a little bit harder each day to go in and face that kind of environment. And the turnover of the number of providers that's there and having to reintroduce yourself to new patients every day, even if they have already established with the company themselves, they're new to you. And so it's instead of having 2 new patients per session, you're left with 11 new to provider patients because they've had an abundance of physicians leaving to go somewhere else because they need to feed their families. I mean, you can't be mad at people changing every 2 to because contracts are changed in the middle of a year, and
Mm-hmm.
then you are left to either stay and accept what they're going to give you or find some other alternative. And so I'm in the middle of contract renegotiation and looking for some guidance on, making a different step, such as locums.
So you are
Mm-hmm.
hospital employed right now, or you work in a private practice, like you are one of the partners, or um,
It's hospital based, but it still
mm,
feels like a private practice. So
Right.
I
mm.
work for a large hospital who has multiple clinics around the city, but it's just the two of us. And then I also go to another office where it's just me and another person as well. So it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like dividing time.
Right. Right.
Okay. Okay. And then this is fully staffed clinics. So I'm talking about you have like an MA or a couple of MAs. You have someone who's doing the intake. You have nurses.
Right, correct.
Okay. And then
Fully staffed
fully
most
staffed.
of the time.
Okay.
So
And then
the
go ahead.
dynamics is I see and serve the health equity in the city. So like I see the patients who nobody else really wants to see, whatever, because of the high acuity of the patient. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's only me and one person that sees a majority of those patients here. And so
So
that's
can you
one
get
clinic.
specific? What does that mean? What does that mean, the health equity? Be specific about
So
that.
your Medicaid, Medicare part payers, those who don't have access to care. So they may be on some type of sliding scale assistance program through the hospital, and are able to contract our services there.
Mm,
And we're in the underserved area of the city, right across the street from one of the biggest churches in the city. And so we get a
Mm-hmm.
lot of care from homeless, people out of prison or out of jail. They get referred to us, especially since my partner used to be one of the providers at the jail here in the city. They
Mm.
will sometimes come over to our clinic once they were released. So we see a lot of those patients who, otherwise wouldn't see a doctor.
And what's your schedule right now?
I see patients starting from 7:40 in the morning to around 4:30 in the afternoon.
7:40 in the morning?
Are you
Hmm.
really going home at 4:30?
No. If I go home at 4:30, you best believe this laptop is getting opened back up anywhere between 8
Right.
and midnight,
Right.
whatever. And then because we have the lack of providers, I'm on call weeks at a time. So one week,
Mm.
then I'm off a week, then I'm on call again for a week. And so that's that interruption every other week.
Yeah.
And when you say you're on call, this is home, like this is
It's home,
call
home
directly from
call.
patients, or is this like admitting patients into the hospital?
No, it's triage calls. So I have a nurse and mediary, so they get a call. They may need a call for, advice on what to do about a patient. Cause everybody gets sick after 11 o'clock at night. They've been
Yes,
sitting
they
at home
do.
all day. And then at 11 o'clock at night, that's when it become a problem when they can't go to sleep.
They can't go to sleep. That's right.
But I was already asleep.
Right. You ain't had no problems.
Right. So yeah. Hmm.
So
Okay.
that sounds like a really busy. So when you're on call, like we're talking about like on a Saturday and Sunday,
Yeah.
right?
Holiday.
Does that
Mm.
interfere with, because you have a child, right? How old is your child?
My baby is 6, just
Okay.
turned 6.
So
Um, yeah,
very
so
similar to
only
our
child.
child. Our child is
Yeah.
is
I
6
think
months
our
old.
kids are 6 months apart.
Yeah.
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 Do you find that interferes in that at all, or?
It interferes a great amount of time because I'm a single parent. So I moved home majorly because I need help, and just because of this same schedule was what I had in Charlotte. And anytime I want to travel, I got to fly my parents in, whatever, or
Right.
I got to hire help to come in and help. And so moving back home was easier because my sister is literally 3 minutes around the corner from me. And
Mm-hmm.
she puts my son on the bus in the morning for me and gets him off the bus in the afternoons. And then, those 2 nights a week I want to go work out or at the gym, she got to keep them later. And I just feel like
Yeah.
that's a lot, even though there's family and they don't require you to pay them, thank God. it's still a lot. And as a mother, you got that guilt feeling, you feel guilty about not being there for your kid in the morning and you only there at night. And so you look like the monster. You always got to put me to bed and wake me up and fight with me in the morning. But throughout the day, we have limited hours Monday through Friday.
Right.
So,
right.
Okay. So how, like, in terms of your negotiation with the hospital, how far, I know you say you're in the middle, but what does that mean? Like,
we're going back and forth about what their expectations are at this point. I feel that, I do the work of 4 other providers because you just lost 3 of them at one office, and one particularly might be out the door soon. And you want me to be the lead over one particular office. And then you call me back and say, no, Dr. Suttles, I need you to be the lead over 2 offices now. And so I'm like, you're trying to restructure your primary care department. And in the meantime, I'm left out here naked by myself, and so there is no room to schedule follow-up visits. There's no room to see anybody really acutely because you're trying to fit in people's patients. And I say people's patients, other doctors' patients who you haven't had an established relationship with. You're trying to fit them in on your schedule and still see the patients you established a relationship with. And so there's nowhere to put these people. And you don't want to hire anybody. I don't know if you guys heard, or it was on front page news here, of course, but our hospital just got bought by a venture capitalist group. So we went from a nonprofit hospital system to a now for-profit hospital system starting in probably January of 2025. And so you got doctors who still need to pay their student loan debt.
Yep.
And
So now they don't
you know,
qualify. They don't qualify for
correct.
what's the name of that
The
program?
Imagine
PSLF now anymore. Yeah.
right. So imagine being in your 9th year.
Right.
Like your 9th year in this happens,
Yes.
and then you think about, restructuring. You can't hire any new grads because they like, I got all this debt. And so you're left to try to find somebody who wants to come in, and you got to set a nice package. But here we are in the middle of negotiations and you trying to decrease your match to my 401k. You're trying to remove CME money. You want to pay me less to do more. And I'm just like, nah, that don't work for me. And although we're in contract, I can get out of this contract.
I think we kind of know where these negotiations are going. So, I mean, you kind of basically described like how you feel about it and how it's going. But for real, Dr. Suttles, like what specifically is your question to us? What could we, because I think I already know the answer, but I just want to know, what's your question to us?
How to exit stage left. Like, what do I do first? What do I do second? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do I set, what is my, I guess, a timeline? Because I know the timeline to submit a resignation, but what's the timeline I need to set up or to explore what my options are? You got all these different locum companies out here, and some of them be in my email, whatever, but I don't know who to go with. And already with the restraint of being a single mom, like I had explained earlier, travel is looking like something that I'm gonna have to consider for the simple fact that I looked at your list of the top 10 places that's looking for, family medicine docs and stuff like that. And the commitment they're looking for is like 2 to 6 months. I'm like, no, I need something a little bit shorter, but lucrative.
Right.
Yeah. That's a deep question, but I think it's a problem or a question that a lot of people have, which is, can I summarize?
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to resign with my hospital, but I'm not sure exactly how to take the next steps to make sure that I don't have to resign with my hospital while I'm trying to figure it out.
Right.
Basically.
Correct.
So should I resign with my hospital while I'm figuring it out, or should I just be quiet and figure it out? Because I think a lot of people are like, bouncing is not an option, right? Unless you have a plan, right? So it's either re-sign with the hospital under the full terms? And you have really good, you being from Akron and you being from Cleveland, you got LeBron James there who knows how to sign a 1-year contract on the low, right? Excuse me, on the up.
Right.
He'll sign a
Yes.
1-year contract over and over and over and over and over again to keep
Only 1 year.
companies, to keep the Cleveland Cavaliers, making sure that they have talent around them, right?
Right.
So my question to you is, one, can you just bounce, right? Just be like, I'm out. Do you have enough in your savings? Do you have enough of that to just be like, yo, I'm not working until I figure out something better?
Yeah, I have an emergency fund. I really don't want to tap into it, but I mean, if push came to shove, yeah. I mean, as soon as we were going through these negotiations, I reached out to my finance person and said, hey, do I have to sit still or can I, for the next 6 months, sit at home and figure it out? And he told me it's pretty much up to me. But, you sit at home for 6 months, that's 6 months I'm putting myself backwards instead of forward. But yeah, I could just bounce. Being the answer to that, I could.
So yeah, because that's always one thing that you want to think about, right? Is whether or not you have the financial ability to be able to pivot when you want to pivot. So I think that's first things first. The other thing is, you talked about doing locums. One of the things that you could do is you could do the smooth transition, right? Where you work, okay, but you do locums on the side. Now, I know as a single mom, you're already busy. Yeah. That's going to be tough. So I guess my question is, before we get on to the move and before we get into the work and transition, my question is, in renegotiating this contract, it sounds like you have a little bit of leverage if people are, chucking the deuces left and right. And so while we joke about that 1-year contract or whatever, the reality is you probably got a lot of leverage because they probably don't want to lose you. So what do you think you could do in order to leverage kind of, your ability to be able to take advantage of the situation that you have at work and move that into something that you could do, while you transition into locums?
Well, being African-American Black female and being one of maybe 4 in the city, that's some leverage that I'm, here. And then you're not going to find another primary care doctor that's more dedicated to the health equity of the city, because I trained in an urban setting.
Right.
I, was a National Health Service scholar. So my first couple of years out in practice were in these underserved areas. So I'm dedicated to the patient, whatever. And it's hard to find people who are invested in those communities, and these are communities that look like me. And so, trying to explain that to corporate that, I don't care what your fair market value you rate me as, I compare to no number you can give me, whatever. I was comfortable with what you were supplying me before, and I'm not looking to make any downward move in my salary, whatever. And that's where we are currently. Like, you have to see my worth. And I have patients that would stand 10 toes down, like, she need to stay, whatever. And so who I need to contact, whatever kind of thing. So I think I have some leverage there. And then the fact that they keep adding more responsibilities that come at a price. You can buy my loyalty for 1 year at this fair market price for me. And if that's a no.
Are you negotiating yourself or do you have a lawyer?
Myself. Okay. You suggest I get a lawyer?
In my opinion, I think that you can do it yourself if you have a lot of experience, if you have some training, and definitely if you can learn to keep the emotion out of the back and forth, right? Like if you can be extremely, just like they
transactional.
If you could be very transactional about your skills and what you do and what it would mean to the hospital with you there, and what it would mean to the hospital without you there, without bringing emotion, then if you feel comfortable having that type of conversation,
I
go
keep
for
the emotion out of the email responses.
I can't do that. I can't do that. I use caps locks for everything. I will
Right.
run up on someone's
Keyboard
car.
courage.
I will put paint on their car. So for me,
Right.
I just get a lawyer so that I can handle all that stuff because for me, it's really hard for me to, it's hard for me to be transactional about what I do because what I do on a daily basis is very high intensity. You know what I'm saying? Right. And for me to kind of just say, hey, a trauma surgeon is worth this versus this, there's this quantification is hard. So that's why for me, I always get a lawyer because after a while I get bored. And when I get bored, then I start to get frustrated. But we're different. We're different. So if you feel like you need a lawyer who can kind of talk about things in a very transactional process and you can't, then go ahead and do that, right? Because right now, lawyers who can negotiate for yourself, we had one on our show about a year and a half ago. The average cost, I think realistically is anywhere between like $500 to maybe like $3,000 possibly, depending on how long it takes, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes it doesn't mean that you can't at least get a lawyer to at least review the contract.
Right, the final.
And at least give you advice on a contract. Like, maybe I would ask for A and then I would let B slide so that C can come through and look nicer, something like that so that that, in a negotiation, you can't get everything, right? But maybe you can get 50% of what you need and go from there.
Yeah. And also, to look at the language, right? Because just when you think everything has been negotiated and everything is, fine and you've gotten everything that you wanted, the question is about the language and how the interpretation of what is written in the contract will be, right? So if it can be interpreted one way versus another way, you need it to be rock solid. Like this thing cannot be interpreted any other way but this way that you want it to be.
Like what does fully staffed mean?
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Right. So things like that, things that are very ambiguous, even though you might have an idea of what that means, but it's actually ambiguous. At least for the final contract, I would suggest getting someone to take a look at it. But I'm kind of like you. I like to negotiate on my own primarily and then hand off.
Okay.
So what do you need to come back, for another however long, 1 year, 3 years? What is it that you're going to need for them to do?
Hire some more physicians.
What if they can't do that? What if they say they can't guarantee that in a year?
So one of the things that I think we're finally solid on is, I don't want to do production. I don't want to do work RVU. I don't want to be held to a certain number of a patient work that I have to do. So I need a salary, and I need a salary with a floor work RVU that I need to meet. And then I need to know what my payout will be when I exceed the work RVU you're going to set. And so we're working those numbers out.
Do you want a salary guarantee or do you still want RVUs in your calculations?
I want them to run concurrently together. So this is what you're going to pay me as my salary as long as I meet this floor of your RVU. So
you don't have that right
now? No.
So
how's it structured right now?
When you first started working with them, did you have a guaranteed salary at all for like a couple of years and then they took it away?
Correct.
Okay.
And so the thing is,
we got some young people listening. They don't understand
what that means. Right. Yeah.
So because of my experience, I started off, let's say that the tiers was 1 through 5. Because of my experience, I started at a tier 4. And so I got that guarantee for 2 years. The second year was the measure year. That was the year to measure how well I did, whatever. And so now this year is, hey, Dr. Suttles, you didn't meet that measure. So we're going to drop you from a tier 4 to a tier 2. No, you're not.
Right.
No, you're not.
Right.
Whatever. Because one, you can't show me any evidence of a provider who came in this environment and met your current work RVU. You can't even show me how to do it, whatever. And so therefore it tells me that you hired me knowing that I wouldn't meet that expectation. And so you always plan to pay me less to do more. And so we're going to renegotiate that.
Right.
No matter where you are in your career, you've seen patients your age or younger get seriously injured, have a long-term illness, or even have a mental health issue that affects their ability to work. Now, what if that was you? No, for real, what if that was you? Without disability insurance, how are you going to replace your paycheck? In episode 176, Jamie Fleischner of Set for Life Insurance explains why the best time to buy disability insurance is during your residency.
Most physicians acquire their disability policies during residency, and there's several reasons. First of all, when you're younger, you're able to obtain the insurance because they ask you a whole host of medical history. And so you usually don't get healthier over time. Usually you get less healthy over time. So when you're healthy, it's easier to acquire the coverage. Number two, it's also less expensive because it's based on your age and your health. You're not getting younger or healthier over time. So you're at the ideal time. The earlier you get it and the younger you are, the less expensive it's going to be.
So whether you're a resident or you're an attending, it's never too late to protect your income. Renee and I, we use Set for Life Insurance to find a disability policy that fit our needs and budget. So what are you waiting for? Check out setforlifeinsurance.com. Once again, that's setforlifeinsurance.com. So everybody who's listening, so RVU basically is a way to
Relative value unit.
Yeah, it's a way to quantify what doctors do, right? Like if you see patients in clinic, that is assigned an RVU, right? If you do gallbladder surgery, that's an RVU. And it's basically a way to quantify
how much work you do.
How much work you do. And it makes sure that the gallbladder that is done in Denver or a gallbladder that is done in Ohio is basically the same price as a gallbladder that's done in Jersey or in Florida. And, what we find out, though, is that if you see a patient who, for example, in family medicine, I'm sure like the RVUs for seeing a patient for a high blood pressure check is not the same as the RVU for someone who may have something more, complex or a combination of things.
Heart failure, diabetes.
I was just thinking congestive heart failure.
Disease, stage 3.
Yes.
And had a blood clot.
Right.
Right. And they take
That's
a lot of time.
That's the kind of patient I see.
Right.
They take a lot of time. I don't know how many patients, how many of those you can fit in your schedule. You probably double booked, triple booked, so it really affects your ability to provide a stable income for yourself, because what we end up finding is that RVUs, that relative value unit, really, it values procedures more so than clinic visits. Is that safe to say?
It is safe to say.
So for someone like you who is mainly at this point clinic based, it puts you at a disadvantage. And I think for the folks who are listening, what ends up happening is if you're going to go to a hospital that's going to focus on RVUs, usually what they do is they provide a salary for you for the first 2 years or 3 years, like in Dr. Suttle's example. It's guaranteed. Like they're going to pay you $200K no matter what. And then in between one of those years, like your second year or third year, they're looking at all the procedures you're doing. They're looking at all the clinic visits that you do. And then what they do is year 4, when you re-sign with them or whenever it's time to renegotiate, or you may not even have to renegotiate, that next year is going to be based off of how much you make is going to be based off of what you did the year before. Right. There's no longer a salary guarantee anymore. Right. So if, let's say, for example, the people don't come to the clinic anymore, you're not getting the referrals that you need anymore, or whatever it may be.
Patients don't come to their visit.
Right.
Patients don't come to their
You
visit.
have no control of that.
Right. Exactly. And especially when you have a patient population that is more vulnerable. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And you
even
can't
changing a bus route.
Right.
Changing a bus route come in.
Yeah, you can't triple book because then that's the day everybody show up, right? And then they mad.
Yep.
And you want to measure me on my patient satisfaction scores.
Right. Yeah.
So you want it so that you're getting a floor, a guaranteed salary, which is a certain amount. And then if you go above a certain amount of RVUs, then you'll get that as a bonus. Which is not a big ask, actually. A lot of people have that. So for those who are listening, I hope y'all are like, why is she asking about? Nope, that happens a lot, guys. So.
Yeah. Well, especially when you're doing the work of 10 men. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, at some point they have to realize that you do have that leverage because they don't have the number of providers. And no matter how much they want to double and triple book you, it is never going to actually equate to the number of patients that they would see if they had the number of providers that they actually had, which it sounds like they are not really doing a good job at keeping providers. For me, I think that's actually the leverage that you have, is that they don't have the number of providers that they need, and that you are providing, a service, especially when you describe that you're seeing a patient population that a lot of doctors might be running from. If I were you, though, I would never bank on doing a negotiation based on something that they will externally promise, i.e., we will get more providers. They cannot guarantee you that.
Right.
That is a big conditional, because it's going to be an if, not necessarily a when. So when you negotiate on something that that you can control, that you can set the boundary on. So I do like the, I want my salary, I want my base salary.
Is that your biggest pain point? Is that the biggest thing for you? Like,
The biggest thing, yes. And then, I mean, just the demand, like more work. Like they want me to take over 2 offices. It's just like,
Mhm.
you want to grow in the company. You want to be able to see yourself like, hey, maybe one day not necessarily being in patient care, doing something a little bit more administrative. So I'm trying to get my feet wet a little bit, but I can't be pushed into it, whatever, and still expect to do this job. And like, one of the biggest things for me is that most of the administrators here are physicians,
Right.
but none of them carry a patient load, not even a
Right.
half a day a week,
Right.
whatever. So if you want to help the system work, instead of sitting behind a desk, see some patients. If patients is how we gonna get our money.
Right.
that always makes
But
me nervous when you have doctors who are, I mean, either way, anybody in the C-suite makes me nervous, but I think doctors in the C-suite make me nervous because it's like, well, what exactly are you here to do? Are you here to make it easier for the administrators to understand the plight of doctors? Or are you just here to basically be a nice face to the demands of what the C-suite wants doctors to do? You know what I'm saying? And that's what I get nervous about.
I think, honestly, C-suite doctors, I think for the most part, if I were thinking about C-suite, I would literally just be thinking, how can I get my schedule in such a way that I don't have this workload? If I can do something great, then I'll do it. But is it 100%, that I'm going to do something great for this community? Probably not, because I'm in this big conglomerate. I'm just a cog in a wheel. So I'll do what I can. But right now, the priority is I got to get my time back. And I think that's probably a majority of administrative physicians, and no shade to them, because they probably did it because they were burnt out from seeing so many patients. And they probably feel like, yeah, I'm just a cog in a wheel. This is not necessarily going to change. But I've got to do something to change my own life for myself and for my children. Like you mentioned, you're a single mom, and yes, you become the monster of wake up when the child doesn't want to wake up in the morning and go to sleep when he doesn't want to go to sleep. And it's like, is that the only interaction that you're going to have with this kid?
correct.
In
Yeah.
my opinion, I would, if negotiations don't go the way how you really want it to go, I think what I would be thinking to do is, because relying on your savings, that's a big deal, right? Like that's a 180 degree turn right there. That's extremely drastic. But if you're willing to do it and you're ready to do it, go ahead. What I was thinking is just maybe seeing how far you can get with negotiations, and then just deciding, you know what, this is going to be either a 1 year or 2 year type thing. And during that time, you're saving up, you're getting your ducks in a row, you're speaking to family, and you're just saying, hey guys, like, oh, and also you're looking at other options, whether that's going to a competing hospital, or considering locums, or maybe considering urgent care if that's not like restricted from you when you leave your hospital and so forth. But during
Or
those
telemedicine.
telemedicine,
I was going to say
Working
family
from
med.
home. Yeah.
right? Those 1 year to 2 years, those are the things that I would be doing to really like get yourself ready to transition out of this situation? Because it doesn't seem like it's a situation that's going to end positively. Because yes, let's say you do get the salary guarantee, and yes, let's say you do get the RVUs that you want. Like the things that are also just important to you, i.e., spending time with your children, not being on call, or seeing so many, hella patients. I don't know if that's really going to change.
Right.
I agree. I don't think that part will change, especially if they bend on that particular area. They like, okay, we're going to give you this, Suttles, but we still need you to produce what you already been doing, which is seeing a hell of patients, whatever. So, I mean, one other thing that I wanted to negotiate in that too was some protected time. I already get a couple of hours of protected time per week, but because you're asking me to take on more administrative role, I need a little bit more protected time.
Right.
And so that's, paperwork coming in from 4 other doctors plus yourself. That's the part of my job I hate too, Renee. I heard you say, I hate the paperwork.
Oh, I hate paperwork. Don't like it at all.
FMLA paperwork,
Yeah.
That takes a long time.
Family medicine,
it's like 8 pages.
So,
yeah, you get a lot of FMLA for that. Yeah.
Oh, the older you are, people like, I don't want to come get my trash can out the backyard. Can you sign this form to tell them they got to come to my backyard? I'm like, doctors do.
Or help me get a handicap, or help me get a handicap
sign.
Yeah. All of these things that, they take time.
They'll tell you that in residency. You fill out paperwork to keep people lights on, to keep the gas from getting disconnected, for them coming to get your
a support dog,
loan forgiveness because you're disabled. You do all of that.
all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
So the way how I look at it is, locums. The way how I look at it is how uncomfortable do you want to get, right? Because for locums, I do think that there are opportunities for you to find opportunities possibly that are closer to you, right? I think that's
especially where you are.
There's opportunities to be locums there. You'd be surprised. You leaving, you might be able to do locums at your facility.
I was thinking the same thing.
It's like, you know what? Y'all can't have me this way. You're going to have me the other way, right? That's one thing to consider. Also, don't sleep on like private practices that are in the area that need some coverage on the weekends, or may need coverage when people take time off. Right. And also don't sleep on like other competing hospitals that just need locums coverage, for their practices, either during the week or during the weekends and so forth. It just depends on, and then obviously, there's family practice opportunities where you have to travel, but that's going to be difficult, with a 6-year-old. That's going to be really difficult. And that's why I say it depends on how uncomfortable you want to get. But I think you can do it, maybe not far away, but I do think you can find these local places that are willing to contract with you, able even just running an urgent care,
I was going to say, but you also, Dr. Suttles, first of all, full disclosure, I used to live with Dr. Suttles for like a month.
Yes.
It's not living with someone.
It was living. We had a good time. Okay. We had a good time. What? This was October of 2005.
Ooh,
I think it was October. No black and white TV. But
BET was still having videos.
Right.
But when I was a 4th year, I rotated at Akron Children's in their children's ER. And lived with Dr. Suttles, didn't know anything about me. I didn't know anything about her. And I think there was at one point when quick story, when I came in, I think that evening, she set me up in a second room, and I got up before her, and I went to my rotation, and I come back, and when I come back, she says to me, "Girl, I thought you was crazy." I was like, "What happened?" She's like, "I went into the room. I didn't see anything, no luggage, no nothing." She thought I had left. But what actually happened was I had put all my stuff away in a closet, but she thought I was insane and just like up and left.
Right. Like, what is going on?
But I digress. Those were good times. But you do have a little something on the side that you are doing. So tell us a little bit about that and if that is an option, to be able to expand that, to be able to kind of meet the goals that you're trying to meet right now, right? Because while locums certainly, is an option for you, entrepreneurship, right, looks different
Correct.
ways, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about what you're doing, the name of your company, and what it's all about, and like how you envision that growing potentially.
So I have a little side hustle. It's called the Lux MD, LUXE, the Lux MD. And it's more so aesthetics and obesity, weight management kind of med spa feel. It's pretty much seeing patients who are self-pay, no insurance based or anything, like cash based business, who are looking to feel good from the, inside out, and outside in, whatever. So, just doing that. I did a little bit in North Carolina when I was there. Had a nurse that was working alongside with me. And so since I moved here, I'm currently looking to hire like a nurse practitioner to kind of do more of the lead work a lot of the times during the week, and I can do some consults, maybe 2 days a week, and offer some other services as I roll out stuff. So I'm looking to make that full time, but that's the dream, So trying to work that in some kind of way. So those are where my weekends are currently, like doing stuff like that.
So you actually are practicing this already?
Yeah. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
This is up and running. And that's kind of
a big deal, actually.
Yeah. I was thinking about that because I was thinking that you're essentially almost like a concierge type, right? I mean, that's one of the things that I think you should certainly consider, especially if locums becomes something that's a little more cumbersome for you, right? Me and I love ourselves some locums, but, it doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And I think with something like the Lux MD, that's something that you could potentially build out, get clientele. If you listen to episode, what is it, number 2 with Dre, number 2 or 3, with Dr. Dreon Burge, he talks about how he built a concierge practice where he literally has, 8 patients or something per year. And they pay like a premium price to have access to them. Also, Brooke Chalet.
She had a psychiatry practice that she built while in residency.
Right.
And she was able to hire different doctors.
Her attendings.
To work that job. I think that stuff is, I think what you're doing with Lux MD, the Lux MD, please, you've already trademarked that, right?
Yes, she did, because I looked it up.
Okay, good. It's not pending.
Because I didn't know. I see somebody else trying to creep on that name.
It's registered, right? Just to clarify.
It is.
Okay, good. Because there's an R and then there's, okay.
Yeah.
Good. So the most important thing is you got to have time to work on that, though, right? And the way in which you're working right now, like, it's going to be tough. And that goes back to what I was saying. Like, maybe you just go back to them and say, look, give me the salary, give me this, find like the big things and just say, look, I'm going to do this for a year and then I'm going to bankroll or give my business, the LuxMD, the runway that it needs to really get off its feet.
Yeah.
Because like I said, if you just go cold turkey, and you're paying for you're paying for, your home, or excuse me, you're paying for your home, or you're paying for all of those different things. You're not going to have the runway to really do what you want to do with the LuxMD.
Right.
Whereas if you're working just for maybe a year, you're giving yourself a finite time, you're bringing in revenue, you got what you wanted, which was the salary guarantee. And yes, they're making you work, but look, they're already making you work and you're already doing this on the weekend. So you give yourself a timeline after a year, you're bouncing,
Yeah.
The question I also had too is, in your current practice style, is the hospital doing a good job with advertising? Like, is your billboard up there? Are they still doing that type of stuff or no?
Oh, they know who I am.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they did. I think they did an excellent job with marketing for me.
Okay.
I mean, I've had a lot of other doctors say they didn't do half things they did for you, for me. So I think they have done a great job with that.
Well, I get a lot of my patients word of mouth, though, honestly. Right. I mean, but again, I think that's part of the leverage, right? Is that you're a Black female physician, is not too many in your, in your area. Right. And so, yeah, like considering the population of Akron, Ohio, right? I mean, correct. You're a hot commodity. That's leverage. That is leverage. Pick a salary, pick a big salary. And,
be careful though with these companies though, when they go for profit. See, the whole thing is when they go for profit, like they have to guarantee a certain amount of
to their shareholders,
a certain amount of a certain amount of return to their shareholders. So a lot of them will just like, they'll hold the fort, right? Because they're like, well, it don't matter. We still got to bring in a certain type of revenue. So just be prepared for like a really hard negotiations.
Yeah. But I mean, one of the other things that we didn't talk about also is kind of, we talked about career moves, but we didn't talk about investing yet. And I know that you had some questions about investing. Are you currently investing? You said you had a financial planner that you're working with.
I need the investing book for dummies. Like I need it to be broken down. Like, so if you can like email me some things I should read, I know we're running out of time, but I mean, give me some literature to look over, whatever. If we need another, Q&A, I'm more than happy to come on and tell you what I did, how it worked for me. But I really would love to just like take this money and flip it real fast. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to, I'm not a day trader, but I've been put some puts in and some, whatever I need to do to pay my son's tuition legally.
Or illegally. But that's good then. Okay, then. So
without doing OnlyFans.
I think what we got. You took it there.
You got a foot fetish. I got pretty feet.
Make it work, baby. Make it work.
Like red lips.
There you go.
You want to hear?
ASMR. ASMR.
Yeah. Clicking on stuff.
Like why are you quadruple booked now? Right. Everybody coming in like,
right?
You can't afford my copay, but you can afford OnlyFans. Interesting,
right? That'd be a whole episode. How I quit medicine and went to OnlyFans
with your feet,
with my feet, stepping on cans.
So that's not where I thought this show was going to go. Hey, it's a welcome change. All right, we'll take it. We'll take it. OnlyFans. We should do an episode on that. How many doctors are doing OnlyFans? If you're a doctor and you have an OnlyFans account, come in and write us out. Write us on the show. We'll catch you up in the show. Yo, Alfred, put the text number on there. Let us know if you're an OnlyFans doc. Boom. There you go.
Boom. There you go.
But Dr. Shivonne, we should have you come back and talk about the investing component because I think it's really interesting because if you have a financial planner, do you know what the plan is? Do you know what you're invested in? Do you have access to see it? Do you know how he or she gets paid? Those are things that I think we can work out in another episode because I'll be really honest with you in terms of flipping quickly. And I know you're just joking with, how quickly, but we are long-term investors. So like when we buy and we hold and, we are investing for the long term. Now, when we get real estate, that's a little bit different and so forth, but it'll be super interesting to get you on to talk about that and see what your approach is and see what your numbers show and kind of give advice on that when we have you back on the show.
That sounds great.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, from this talk, you got, a few options on what you can do.
Took notes.
Take some notes. And then we have our attorney. I will text you his information. We've been working with him, over
10 years.
Yeah. Well over 10 years. And so he's done when we were permanently employed. He's done those contracts for us. He's done our locums contracts for us. And he's really good, very thorough, and loves to call people if he needs to be able to be like, yeah, we're going to do this way.
Exactly.
And so he's very effective. So I will text you his information tonight.
Okay.
But let's just let's review real quick what we talked about. So the most important things are, number one, you have a healthy emergency fund. Doesn't have to be salary. It just needs to be whatever the house expenses are and some other expenses that you need, like food and other things like that. Number 2 is you're negotiating on your own and you feel comfortable doing that.
Right.
But no, just like Renee had just mentioned, there are lawyers out there who I think are well worth their weight in gold in terms of being able to give you a different opinion. Or maybe even, kind of take the emotion out of things if you feel like you're getting emotional with it. I do. I'm not saying you are, but I would. And then 3 is considering, fighting for what's really important for you, which is having the salary bottom guaranteed and then having the RVUs be working concurrently. And then realizing that you may not be able to get everything and putting yourself on a timeline. Because you can put up with for like, if you give yourself a year or 2 years, right? Like we've been through it, right? Like you can put up with stuff for like a year or 2 if you know what the ultimate end goal is. And then number 4, I think also is considering locums opportunities that are local to you, right? Local to other hospitals, local with other private practices, or maybe even when you walk away from this hospital, coming back and saying, you know what, I'll come back and I'll be a locums doctor for
for as long as it takes for you to hire.
OnlyFans rate would be, OnlyFans divided by 365.
Right. This is my
That's
daily
a pay
rate.
increase.
This is my daily rate.
That's your daily
I'm
rate.
not budging.
There you go.
Then why don't you sponsor our show?
With your OnlyFans fee.
With my OnlyFans.
Only fee. Okay.
Right.
And then number 5 is, I think what was number 5? I don't know what number 5 is. We covered a lot.
We covered a lot. Number 5. Oh, this one.
Yep. Number 5 is your entrepreneurial endeavor, which you're already in the midst of anyway, is not only just keeping yourself ready to go to do locums at other places, but also using this year or 2 to kind of give your business, the LuxMD, the runway that it needs for you to really just say, you know what, for a year, we just going to make it happen. And we're not going to worry about working anywhere else. This is what I do, and give you the time and an opportunity to do the administrative and the marketing things that you need to grow the business.
Right.
You got a lot of options.
Invest in myself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
Well, I got my list.
You got your list. But we're going to have you back on the show to talk about investing, because I think that's another component that, you got to make sure long-term is working for you as well as for your son also.
Right, because we old. I'm old. Yeah, we old. Old
Y'all
with young
old.
babies.
Y'all are old. I'm wise. So
what?
I feel like I'm getting better like a fine wine. So,
yeah.
Lord.
I got to go back and watch your episode about them red flags.
Thank you. Look at his face. Look at his face.
I mean, none of the red flags were on me.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's another show, yo.
Yeah.
Listen, let's end this show right
talk
here.
About October 2005, okay?
Let's end this show right now, guys, because that's another topic that we ain't gonna talk about. All right? Hey, y'all. This is Dr. Nee,
Dr. Renee, and Dr. Suttles.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. We'll catch you on another episode, y'all. Peace.